Hello, welcome back. Thank you so much for being here. Today, I thought I would rank all of the eyeshadow palettes I have tried so far this year. So typically I don't do this until the very end of the year, but eyeshadow palette launches are definitely a little slower than they once were. I know it will come back at some point, but I am missing the palette launches a little bit. But so far this year, I've tried 18 palettes, which is still quite a lot. It really is. So at number 18, I have from Huda Beauty. This is the Greige Creamy Obsessions palettes. I'm not going to stay here too long because I've spoken about these quite a bit, why I don't really love them that much. These I just find, while I can see that she was trying to be innovative and creative with these, I just don't love them. I'm not used to working with an all cream formula to begin with. And so I found that these required a little bit of a learning curve to work with, and that's totally fine, but I also found that they just did not wear very long. And I'm somebody who does have oilier eyelids, so I always have to set down a primer. And even when I do that, these don't wear very long. So I don't love them. I don't love the looks that I create with this one. And a lot of the shades end up looking kind of similar on the lids. I just personally just really don't love it. And because this is an all cream formula, this is a palette that is definitely much more suited to 1 or 2 shadow looks, maybe 3. But working with this type of formula, you do want to keep it really simple, and that's also completely fine. This palette just really doesn't suit my personal preferences, and it does not last all day long like I thought it would. I thought I would really love the Greige Obsessions, but unfortunately it was a miss for me. And then at number 17 is the counterpart. This is the Neutral Brown Creamy Obsessions. Same complaints, I just didn't find it wore very long, and you do want to keep the looks very simple, but I was able to accomplish a lot more depth and complexity with this palette, so I did like it more. I also really liked this foiled shade right here. I found that added quite a bit to the palette as well. The shimmers in here are beautiful, but again, her 9 pans are just very hit or miss for me, and last year she had the All Matte Obsessions, and I loved those, and I thought maybe this is like a redemption arc for Huda's 9 pans, and then we got these. I was excited at first because I thought they were very innovative, and then I tried them out and they just didn't work for me, so I don't love those. Coming in at number 16 is from ColourPop, and this is the Cloud 9 palette. This one is really very pretty. You do get some deeper blues in here, which I'm not a blue eyeshadow wearer. I initially wanted this because I like how light it is and it's just very easy to use, but at the end of the day, you get blues that I'm not going to use, and then the rest of the shades are just so light that I almost feel like it washes me out. And I'm someone who's very fair to begin with, so I typically like very light fair shades. It's just that these might be a little bit too much. So the quality in here is perfectly fine. I think it's a beautiful palette. It's just, I just felt a little bit washed out by it, so I didn't personally love this one. And at number 15 is from Viseart, and this is the Petite Fours Tyrian palette. So this one was actually launched in December, but I didn't receive it until January. So this one I like that it has a little bit more of a unique color story compared to some of my other Viseart palettes. You do get this really deep dark purple, you get this shimmery purple, this lighter pink here, and then this shimmery champagne. This palette's beautiful, I really like it, but at the same time, I feel like it's a very particular color story, and I'm just not going to reach for it that often. So I have described this as a really beautiful New Year's Eve type palette, and I think that is the perfect time that I would use this. Otherwise, I just don't see myself reaching for it that often. Again, it's just a very particular color story. I do give it credit for being a little bit more unique compared to some of my other Viseart palettes, and the quality is still excellent. I just don't love the color story as much. At number 14, I have another Viseart palette, and this is the Petite Fours Esperides palette. So this was part of their spring launch, and I thought I was really going to love this one. And again, the quality is still really great. I don't know, there's something about this shade over here. It's kind of like a pink to purple, almost blue shift. It is like a duochrome kind of shade, but there's just something about it that I just don't really like the look of on my lids, so I don't reach for this palette as much as I thought I would. I just find that those shades that have that pink to blue to purple, and then you mix in these browns, I just find that on me, it just makes me look a little bit tired. So I don't love that. So for that reason, I don't reach for this one as much. I think it's pretty. And again, quality-wise, it's great. It's just not the most flattering color story on me once again. I can make it work, it's just not a favorite. So coming in at number 13 is a palette that caused quite a stir online because this is one, it launched and was sold out within seconds, and then they've had to restock it a few times. And I bought this one purely from nostalgia. This is the ColourPop and Twilight palette. I feel like a lot of us were living our middle school and high school dreams when this palette came out. So the outer packaging is really quite pretty. They have like the cover art in here, which I think is nice. And then the color story, I think they did a really good job of capturing the essence of the movie in this color story. I know there's a bit of a discussion on that. Some people wanted other colors, maybe like a red and a yellow for their eyes, something like that. I heard a rumor, so I don't know if this is true, that there may potentially be more palettes for the other movies, which I think would be very exciting, and I would absolutely purchase those. But if that's true, I think those reds and yellows would be more appropriate for those. Because the first one was really sort of getting to know the story, getting to know the family. It was kind of all about the doom and gloom of Forks. So I think that this color story is really perfect. That being said, this palette launched in February or March, and to me this just looks like a very, very fall color story. I think I would reach for this a lot more had it launched in the fall, and I will definitely be reaching for it in the fall. I've been wanting to create sort of like a multiple looks, but I am somebody who really goes seasonally with my makeup. I always love a neutral look, but if I'm going for color, it's usually quite seasonal. This is just really too much into those blues and greens and cool tones for me right now. I do think this is a beautiful palette, and I do still want to create multiple looks with it. It does have a lot of blue in here. I'm not somebody who does wear a lot of blue, but I do want to create a look just for fun. And I do think this is a really, really pretty palette. And the quality is great. I love everything about it. I really love the outer packaging especially. But again, I think this palette just launched at the wrong time of year for me to really get the most amount of use out of it. But I will definitely be pulling this out in the fall to play with a lot more and create multiple looks. I also just think this palette's pretty. It definitely called to nostalgia. This color story, although it's beautiful, I would not have purchased this if it wasn't Twilight. So I still really like the palette. I just need to play with it a lot more. And coming in at number 12 is a palette that did launch back in December, but I had already filmed my year-end rankings. So this is the Nars Afterglow Irresistible palette. The packaging on this is stunning. I really do love the packaging. This one is still available on Sephora. And as you can see, it's really not a unique color story from Nars. This is essentially the same color story they release every single time. That's why it's ranking at number 12. Otherwise, the formula in here is great. I love, love, love Nars eyeshadow formula. I think they have one of the best formulas in my opinion. Their mattes are just so incredibly silky. This just lost points for me on originality. The packaging, I do love. I think the packaging is absolutely stunning. But again, I have this color story from Nars so many times. So I did drop this down, but at the same time, I do still think it's a really beautiful palette. At number 11 is from Too Faced, and this is the Born This Way Warm Ember Nudes Mini Eyeshadow Palette. So they did release 2 of these this year, and I love these little palettes. So if you have the original Too Faced Born This Way palette, you don't need the minis, you especially don't need this one. I don't have the larger one, but I'm pretty sure that this color story is fully in the original Born This Way palette. So this is a very warm color story. I also want to mention Too Faced Best Formula used to be the ones in the tin pans. It's really not anymore. It's the ones with these types of layouts now. They're Born This Way formula. And this formula is also made in Italy. It's still not up to par with, say, Natasha Denona, Pat McGrath, Nars even. It's not up to par with those, but it's still a pretty good formula, especially from Too Faced. This palette is really, really pretty. I love the warm shades. I love the way they lay them out. You can use all of these shades in a look if you want, or you can do it in duos. So this is a duo, this one, and this one. And it makes really, really good sense to do it that way, especially if you're someone who likes to create a really quick look and just be done with it. I think the formula in here is good. I think the color story I really like. It's just a little warmer than I personally prefer, and I don't get a lot of use out of this shade, so I just don't like that type of pink on my lids. But otherwise, I think this palette's beautiful. You do get a mirror in here as well, and it closes with a little clasp, which I just think is cute. For some reason, I think that little mini clasp is the cutest thing, but I really do like these palettes. Coming in at number 10 is from Wayne Goss, and this is one that I received in my Beautylish lucky bag, which was very, very lucky. So this is the Luxury Eye Palette Amber. So first of all, the packaging on this is so luxurious. I love the packaging of this palette. And inside you get 6 eyeshadows. These are pretty large pans for eyeshadows. It would take you forever to get through these. And I think this is very, very pretty. I like that you get some neutral shades. And the formula in here is absolutely beautiful as well. I think this is a formula that is going to work really, really well if you have mature lids, texture lids. This is a formula that is going to be so incredibly smooth on the lids and so flattering. It is a thinner formula, but it's very, very silky and just easy to work with. The shimmer here as well is very, very beautiful. But there's something about this color story that makes me not reach for it. I think it's a beautiful palette. There's something there that just doesn't excite me. So that's why I put this one at number 10. I think it's a great formula. I think the packaging is absolutely stunning. I just don't love the color story for some reason. Coming in at number 9 is from ColourPop, and this is the 1111 palette. I wanted this one for a while when it first came out. It kind of reminds me of the Natasha Denona I Need a Nude, but with a little bit more depth, and you also get some more sparkly shades in here. You do get one of their sequin shades, which is like a matte with some sparkle, and then you do get a press of glitter. So for that reason, I did drop this down just because I don't get as much use out of those particular shades. Otherwise, this color story is stunning. I love it. I think it's so, so pretty. The formula is great as well. I think ColourPop did a great job with this one. This is a really beautiful neutral palette if you're looking for something easy and simple to work with. I think this is a great one. Coming in at number 8 is the other Too Faced Born This Way Cold Smolder Nudes. So this one I don't think is in the original Born This Way palette. So this one is just really pretty. I love some good cool toned eyeshadow, so that's why this one is ranking higher. Again, I think the formula in here is really, really nice. This palette, I love the look I create every single time I play with this one. So this one I really enjoyed, definitely more than the warmer nudes. This one is kind of similar almost to the Natasha Denona Glam palette if you have that one. And if you just really love an easy cool tone color story, this is a great one. This is another one where you can work in duos if you want to. You can play with the entire palette, but you can also work in duos if you just want to keep it simple. And I think it's such a beautiful, easy, everyday palette. But you can also go super glam with this one. Again, I love a good cool tone color story, and this one definitely gets it done, and I think the quality is really great as well. Coming in at number 7 is another palette that launched in December after I filmed my year-end ranking. This is from Charlotte Tilbury, and this is the Queen of Luck Luxury Quad. So this one I think is very, very pretty. Very easy, very everyday. You do only get one matte, you get a satin, and then you get 2 shimmery shades. This one is actually like a baked duochrome formula. So I know on camera it looks pink. When I look at it from this angle, it looks gold. So I think that's a pretty cool shade as well. If you already have the Celestial Pearl Quad from a few holidays ago, it's quite similar to this, and you absolutely do not need both. But if you wanted that one and missed out on it, Queen of Luck is a great option because it is very beautiful. You're not going to get a lot of depth with this one, but I do always like the looks that I create with this. I don't reach for it as much because it does only have one matte, but I do always love the looks I create with this quad. I think it's really, really pretty, and I do think it is one of her better quads. She has some really great quads, and then she has some that kind of fall off a bit, but this is definitely one of the best ones. Coming in at number 6 is from Viseart, and this is the Petite Force Isolde palette. This one I didn't expect to love. I expected to love the Esperides palette over this one, but this one comes out with these more mauve tone browns. So here I am loving on this one. I love a good mauve-y leaning color story. I just think that's so beautiful. This one's very easy to reach for, very easy to work with. It looks very flattering on the eyes. And again, Viseart formula is just so, so good. I love with their shimmers that you don't need to apply them with a finger. For me, that's just typically the way I go with shimmer shadows because it's quick, it's easy, and it gives me the best result. Whereas with Viseart, I find that I can do the exact same thing with a brush. And there are very few eyeshadow formulas where I can accomplish that, but Viseart is definitely one of them. And I think this palette is stunning. You get a matte, I think this one's more of a satin, and then you get two shimmers, but these are pretty smooth, if anything. I think the Esperides palette, the shimmers are a little bit more glittery, whereas these ones are a little bit smoother. So I like that as well. I just think this quad is beautiful, and it's definitely one of my favorite quads from Viseart. And coming at number 5 is also from Viseart, but this is the Petite Fours Praline Épicé palette. So I've tried a lot of Viseart this year, that's for sure. It's absolutely not a unique color story. I probably have it 100 times over in my collection, but I love it because it's so beautiful. I love this everyday neutral brown color story. Unfortunately, there is only one matte. This one is kind of like a satin, but it's leaning into a shimmer, and then you get two shimmers right here. There's just something about them that adds such a beautiful sparkle to the eye and just makes me look awake. I just love this color story. These are some beautiful, beautiful, boring browns. I love them. And this is what I reach for often. It's between this one and the Isolde palette that are my favorite quads that I have. I love those two color stories so much. Coming in at number 4 is from Makeup by Mario, and this is the Master Mattes The Neutrals palette. So I debated on this one because you only need so many all matte palettes. I think an all matte palette is such a staple in any collection, but you only need so many. And I have the Patrick Ta, so I was debating on this one. But this is actually phenomenal. This one just really leans into those true neutral shades. There's nothing in here that's too warm, there's nothing that's too cool except maybe these two right here, but everything about this palette really is a true neutral shade, and if that's what you've been looking for, I highly recommend this. I also think the formula in here is so good. It's so blendable, it's so buttery. I've heard quite a few people say it's a different formula than what was in his original Master Mattes palette, so I think that's something to note as well. I just think this is an absolutely stunning palette. I think it's so, so pretty. It's such a staple. I have used this so many times to create all matte looks or to just create something quick and then throw a shimmer on top or a cream shadow, anything. But this just does it all, and I love this palette so much. I love those true neutrals that it leans into. So I really think this is a fantastic palette. And originally I was kind of sad because I was hoping we were getting a cool tone color story from Mario, but after using this, I'm not sad anymore. I can wait. I love this one. Coming in at number 3 is probably the most expensive quad in my collection, and this is from YSL. This is the Couture Mini Clutch Eyeshadow Quad, and this is in the shade 100 Stora Dolls. This is fantastic. Inside, you get this sort of cool leaning color story. It's beautiful. You get these two satiny shades, you get a matte, and then you get a shimmer. These more satiny shades are such a unique formula. They're almost like a cream to powder, but they're so beautiful and easy to work with. You can get a lot of pigment out of these, but they are more buildable. They just look so flawless on the eyes. In my honest opinion, this is like a very sophisticated formula. You know, sometimes you get these really high-end palettes and you're clearly just paying for the name or the packaging because the formula inside really isn't that great, but this really is. This is fantastic. There's just something about these, the way they blend, the way they look on the eyes. This is going to flatter everybody. They have a bunch of different shade ranges, but this is, like I said, it's going to look great on everyone. Whether you like a very light eyeshadow look, whether you have mature lids, textured lids, things like that, I think is important to note that this is going to look fantastic, especially with how creamy these shades are. And then the way this shimmer shade, which is very glittery and sparkly, but it's such a thin formula that it adds that glitter and shine without adding texture. It's so, so, so beautiful. This truly is a fantastic quad, and even though it's very, very expensive. I will absolutely be purchasing more shades. I think I saw something recently that they are coming out with more shades of these, and I will absolutely be purchasing some of them because this is fantastic. Coming in at number 2 is from Viseart, and this is the Paris Reverie palette. You're probably sick to death of me talking about this palette because I love it so much. So I love this because, first of all, the Viseart formula, like I said, is fantastic. I actually love every single shade in this palette. I love that I can create something very light and pink with these two here. I can go into these purples. This shade here is actually like a secret purple. It's so pretty. It's really more of a mauve. It's so beautiful. You also have these very neutral browns. You have some more peachy tones up here. I think they're pretty as well. I have used every single one of these shades and I have loved every single one of them. I have yet to create a look I don't like with this palette. I've reached for it so many times. It's really already looking quite beat up and I've probably only had it maybe a month and a half. But it's looking so beat up because I reach for it so often. I absolutely love this palette. It's fantastic. It was really competing pretty hard with my number 1 palette, but my number 1 palette I've been trying for a while longer, but this one from Viseart is absolutely fantastic. And coming at number 1 is from Natasha Denona. This is the My Mini Dream palette. So this one I think I reviewed January 2nd, but I love this palette. I think it's so beautiful. Again, another palette that is looking pretty beat up for only having it for maybe around 6 months. Again, I use this all the time. This is also very, very neutral. I typically create the same look every time with this one in the crease, and then I'll use this one to deepen the crease. I'll use this one as a liner and then this one all over the lid. Occasionally I'll use this one on the outer corner, but typically I create the exact same look every single time, and I love this palette. This one has sort of been competing with the Mini Biba for my all-time favorite palette. Natasha Denona does have my very favorite eyeshadow formula, so it's not uncommon for one of her palettes to be in my number 1 spot every single year, but there's just something about these exact shades that I love so, so much. So again, I'm not at all surprised that this palette is my number 1. It's just so pretty and perfect, and I always love the look I come out with, and it's just so easy for me. So I love this palette. This one almost got edged out by the Viseart, but I've definitely been loving on this one a lot longer, so I gave the number 1 slot to the Natasha Denona. But that is it. So I am hopeful that there will be lots of eyeshadow palette launches toward the end of the year, especially during the holiday rush, because eyeshadow palettes definitely are my favorite thing to try and review, and I just love them so, so much. Let me know down below, what is your favorite palette you've tried so far this year? And if you're still loving eyeshadow, just let me know because I love it too. I don't think I'll ever stop. But that is it for me today. Thank you again so very much for watching. If you're new here, I hope you'll consider subscribing before you go. I do upload new videos every single week. Thank you again so very much for watching, and I will see you in my next one. Bye!